It is amazing to be here with you, Sandra, on the day of elimination of violence against women. But for everybody who is seeing us today, Sandra is a CEO of Valor, where she has led transformative efforts since 2010 to elevate the profile of sexual violence and amplify the voices of marginalized communities. Sandra is just an amazing human being, and it's amazing work the organization does. Sandra, I'm going to start by one question we are asking everybody, like, why do you believe it's important for all of us to mark a day of elimination of violence against women?
Thank you, Pamela. I'm happy to be here. I think it's important because a lot of times as women, and particularly around the issue of violence, we don't get a lot of attention. It's not something we want to talk about. And I think if we hope to prevent it, which is what we do, that we need to mark a day like this and bring it to the world's attention.
Thank you so much. Been in the Dominican Republic recently, and I went to see the Mirabal Sisters Foundation, which inspired so much to see, especially family members that are left behind after violence. But what led you to focus on supporting, centering marginalized voices, trying to push for change?
What led me? I'm a Latina woman of color. I was born in South America. And so that experience is one that I carry with me every day. I really can't separate myself from it, right? My work, and I can't separate my work from it. So I think that it has really helped to inform and enrich the work that I do and that the organization does by ensuring that we have communities of color, those who are marginalized, at the table with us, helping us to set the direction, helping us to recognize and understand the ways in which violence touches their lives, the very many layered ways, and also to identify what are the appropriate solutions for communities that are marginalized and traditionally unserved. Because when we find those solutions, we're actually going to help everyone.
What are some of the challenges communities are facing when they're trying to either seek support or even just trying to admit or report that they've suffered sexual violence, for example?
I think one of the things that the challenges is, first of all, lack of information or misinformation and the distrust of law enforcement or the criminal legal system. I think that's very real. So as a field and movement, we have largely offered support for survivors through that process, through the criminal legal process, that we will be there and support them and help them to navigate it. However, for many survivors, it's not an option. And so if they don't feel safe, then it's not an option. If they don't feel that they're going to be served, or if they feel that there could be any kind of retaliation, for example, LGBTQ communities or immigrants or folks who have had negative experiences, communities with law enforcement and the criminal legal system, then it becomes something that is not an option. And so we are not serving them well when we focus exclusively or primarily on that as a solution.
What areas do you believe need a bit more attention or maybe even innovation to be able to support victims of sexual violence in general?
Well, first of all, I think we should be including survivors and survivors who come from marginalized communities and helping us to identify what are the appropriate solutions. Largely, I believe that we should really be working to prevent violence. That means changing attitudes, changing behaviors, helping people to learn how to communicate and talk about these issues that they're not things that we generally talk to young people about as they're growing. And so, again, because I believe in prevention, I think we should try to prevent it from happening in the first place. But I also believe that we shouldn't throw folks away if they have caused sexual harm, that we really need to take a focus or an interest in helping them to learn differently. Because we believe in prevention, we believe that people can learn to behave differently with proper interventions and with help. There is research that shows that with intervention and help, folks will not reoffend. They will not repeat that behavior. And so I believe in that as well. I think that that is something that's more innovative. Lots of indigenous communities have believed in that for many years, but it's not something that our field has really embraced. So I think it's an area that really needs attention and focus because, Pamela, in addition to it making sense, many survivors have wanted that for many years. And it's because we know that a lot of folks who cause sexual harm are known and loved by survivors themselves.
Of course. And let's talk a little bit about leadership and representation, right? I think it's an interesting one. I think one of the things that, and maybe this might be the opposite way, that always attracted me of thinking about this day was that the story, I don't think I had seen another day that was marked by Latino people or Latina women. And they've done such great work on doing that. So I think I want to spend, a couple of minutes talking about leadership. Like, why do we need to be represented better? And what can we do to bring more young people, really bring them up to be leads on spaces of sexual violence or gender-based violence in general?
Well, I just want to start by saying I think that a lot of us are already natural leaders because we have to provide that type of informal leadership in our communities, in our homes. One of the things that, and I do agree with you, Pamela, that it's very important that we pay attention to and really extend our hands to those that are maybe Latinas in the field and movement, in any field and movement, and really bring them in and mentor them and coach them and be there to support them. Because one of the things that we have found, I know this also from experience, but one of the things that we have found is that a lot of leaders of color, Latinas, we don't have access. We don't have somebody that gives us the opportunity, that shows us the ins and outs, so that then when we get there into a leadership position, we may not have all of the experience that we need in order to be successful. It's not that we can't get it. It's that we haven't had it, that it hasn't been extended to us, that somebody hasn't reached out and said, let me take you under my wing and show you, or at least demystify some of these things that feel scary when we haven't had any exposure to them. So with that, we have found that a lot of us can be successful. We can go and we can contribute everything that we have to bring, but we really do need folks to pay attention and to reach out and embrace us and welcome us in, and also give us that access.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the work that you do at Valor, and what does the organization do?
Sure. I'm the CEO of Valor. I joined in 2010. I had worked at the local level for years before then, and I loved that work, working directly with and on behalf of survivors. At Valor, our work is really more systemic, working towards systemic change. How can we improve and strengthen the systems that survivors interface with? How can we strengthen the systems that can work to prevent it? So we do a lot of that kind of systems change work, trying to make sure that where survivors will go are going to be more survivor friendly and not re-victimizing or engaging in victim blaming, etc. Because we believe so much in prevention, we're like, what can we do to recognize that this happens and that it has happened, but also put in policies and practices to prevent it from reoccurring, to minimize the likelihood that it could reoccur in the future. So our work is really, we work with businesses. We work with, people in the corporate sector. We work with other nonprofits. We work with members that are doing the work at the grassroots and local level. Really, we want to work with anyone that has a reach and influence over others in order to create a change in their own communities. So We work with service workers, farm workers, community LGBTQ communities, people who are formerly incarcerated. We work with those systems also to improve and strengthen the experience that those survivors may have.
That's amazing work, and it is so needed. And just to wrap up in less of a minute, Sandra, can we end violence against women? And if so, what will you tell people watching that they can do?
We have to believe that we can. When, I don't know, but we have to believe that we can. And I think what it takes is everyone to get involved. It doesn't require a special type of person. It means that everybody has to know that every single individual has a role to play in standing up and doing their piece to prevent violence and to create a different environment about what is and what is not acceptable.
Sandra, thank you so much for your leadership, for being an example, not only to the community, but to so many other women who want to engage, who want to do what you do. So thank you so much for your work, for your also partnership to know more. Lots of love, and thank you for being with us here today.
Thank you, Pamela. Thank you to everyone that's joined too.